So let's start by ohming in. You can hear me, right? Yeah, you can. Okay, let's start by ohming in. Welcome, welcome. Thumbs together at your breastbone, palms pushing together. Let your shoulders drop, let your elbows be heavy. And just take a couple of breaths, feeling your breath come in, come out, how that kind of translates to places beyond your lungs. And let's sound 3 ohms. Empty your breath. Let's take an inhale together through the nose. Ah. Relax your hands, open your eyes, and we're going to start by coming into yin fish. So this is the wonderful combination for kidneys and for lungs. So bring the bottoms of your feet together. You want your heels about 2 hands length away from your groin, and then come back onto your elbows. Take a full breath here with your head lifted, and then with your exhale, softly and gently let your head drop back. If that doesn't work for you, you can always keep your chin close to your chest or allow your upper body to come down all the way to the ground right away. So take a full inhale, full exhale. And just take a couple moments to, I don't know, sample the flavor of your day so far. You know, what's been the mood? You know, some mornings we wake up energized and kind of set off at a run and organized and whatnot. Other days, it's like we have to keep pushing ourselves forward or lifting ourselves up, or just notice what the mood is for you today. And then start to let your elbows slide out to the side and take your thumbs and your index fingers together. We're going to take the mudra here. So sliding your hands right to where the ground and your head meet. Shouldn't be able to, like, you shouldn't have to lift up your head dramatically. I just lifted up my head because of my hairdo. And again, take a big, bold, full, dramatic breath. Maybe take some moments to notice how the weather has been around you today. Can you picture the kind of sky it's been or is right now without seeing it? So today we're concentrating on two different sets of organ pairs. So we're concentrating on the lungs and the large intestines and the kidneys and the urinary bladder. You know, just in a healthy reminder that we are far more complex and we can concentrate with more than one or two variables. Before we move out of this pose, just take a moment to deepen your breath one more time. And with your next inhale, stretch your arms straight up to the sky, stretching out from your heart, lift up your feet, and then help yourself up by bringing your feet down, rolling. And imagine maybe the momentum continues and you can cross your ankles and roll over your crossed ankles. And we're going to come into a wide-kneed child's pose where it's nearly the same pose, except for the, like, we're upside down. Like I kind of wanted to flip you like a pancake. Yes, I did. And we're going to first take a couple breaths with our hands going straight forward, but then we're going to add a little twist to it. So take a full inhale. With your exhale, settle in. Maybe you have to change the width of your knees. Giving a couple moments to feel your chest opening towards the ground. And then lift up onto your elbows, and you're going to slide the left elbow behind the left arm behind the right elbow, bringing the left ear towards the ground. You can put it on a pillow if your head doesn't quite reach the ground. And then if you want, you can stay here, or you can stretch your right arm up, bend your elbow and wrap it behind your back. Maybe your fingers come into, like, tuck in between your hip and your thigh. Maybe they don't. But you want to feel that all the action in the pose is about twisting open, twisting your spine open. Take a full inhale. And with your exhale, just breathe it out. So I asked two things really, of like checking for your general mood, and then also just noticing the sky, the nature, the mood of the day. For me, one of the important elements in modern esoterica, spiritual science today, is that we want to always have this kind of inhale and exhale in our observations, that we observe the inner life that we have, but we also observe the nature on the daily basis. We observe the outside. And this breathing in and noticing, and then breathing out and noticing, is about continuing this relationship where it's a dynamic relationship. It's not the mechanical, beat of the metronome. It's an exchange of organic, esoteric, etheric forces. So, on one hand, we can talk about like the actual molecules and the exchange, that we have this dynamicism with our breath, inhaling oxygen, exhaling carbon dioxide, all that good biology that we've learned, but we also want to think about how, do we warm up on our inhale or exhale? Do we brighten our life force in a certain rhythm in a different way than if we are, if we're breathing really fast, we kind of excite even ourselves to an energetic kind of warmth and excitement or anxiety. But we can also slow our breath, and the result, even though it's chemically the same measurement, of the molecules, not necessarily quantity, but the molecules you're exchanging. There is an energetic and dynamic contrast where even when we breathe more slowly, our body does kind of settle and cools and gets, that different quality to it. And then come unwinding to center, bravely keeping your knees where they are, and you're going to wind the other way, threading your right arm behind your left elbow, bringing your right ear onto the ground. And if it's there for you, stretching your left arm up and bending your elbow and wrapping it around behind you. It's dramatic to notice even how different our body reacts to being, used to a warm climate or used to a colder climate. There's a reason why, when we think of going on vacation, relaxing, it's much more, it's more common. Of course, people can, talk about their ski vacations and going to the ice hotel in the north, Lapland. But traditionally, like when we go vacation, like, oh, go to a beach and be warm, because something happens in our body when you're warm. That's different than what happens in our body when we're cold. This is one of the very base ways to kind of just start to get a taste of what and how our etheric body, our pranamaya kosha in the Vedic tradition, how it interacts with our environment, part of our environment. And then unwind and slide your knees together and bring your arms back behind you. So you're pretending to be a little nut or a seed or an embryo. Yep. Just like this. And then we're going to slide forward and come into Sphinx. Make the right adjustments for it to fit your body. If your lower back is really sensitive, you can always slide your elbows in front of your shoulders and let your ribs drop down. If you want to feel a little bit more, you can elevate your elbows on a bolster or books or blocks. And take your legs wide as the yoga mat if your lower back feels fine with it. And then as you find the right place, maybe make those small adjustments so your body can soften and settle in. The more you can know yourself, the more it is clear how and what changes when we make certain choices or certain acts. And different from, our tradition, modern day science, where actually a lot of it is falling in on itself because for too long there was kind of this misconception that the person testing and was unbiased and that we could really be objective. And now, like so many of the traditional experiments upon which most of our modern scientific education is based on are experiment that aren't as repeatable as they were proposed to be. It's one of the scientific mandates that you can repeat an experiment and get the same results. But as we see dramatically in quantum physics, it's turning out to be more and more true that so much of there's so much more bias and there's so much more subjectivity than we ever kind of imagined. And whoever is running the experiment biases the outcomes to one degree or another. So, that's our modern day science and this kind of illusion that we can be objective. But when we're looking at our own connection to the mysteries, we have to really, instead of trying to deny ourselves or just objectify ourselves, we have to know ourselves so that we can understand that as participants, where we affect things, that we are part of the whole, that we can't stand outside of the world that we're in. So then instead of trying to suppress oneself, you're trying to kind of gather your ability to concentrate. You're practicing your self-realization in such a way that you become more peaceful and more, I want to nearly say stripped down to the basics, but more integrous. So there's less interference, perversion, or projection. Take 10 more full deep breaths here. So every system kind of affects us energetically. And the kidneys and the lungs are actually two that have very specific references to different types of energy. So you're probably reaching around 10 breaths. Feel free to wiggle, make some moany sounds, or do a little rap. I don't know. Whatever will move some energy on every kind of subtle level in your body, wiggling around. And then we're going to come into Anahata Asana. So the heart pose, which makes you stick your butt in the air. Okay, that's not exactly this Sanskrit translation, but just about. So Anahata is heart. So stretch your arms out, keeping your hips over your knees. Slide your chest, your heart down towards the ground. If it's too intense on the bridge of your nose, you can always bend one arm and rest your forehead on your forearm. So the kidneys provide us with it's an essence. It's a golden essence. It's a prenatal essence. So if we think about how, when we think of people in our family or friends or classmates, or just think of a group of people, and you can feel that like one person has much more of a slower constitution, is perhaps a little bit more indecisive, or takes a while to get from point A to point B, or like this whole kind of energetic, slower beat. And then we have another person who, seemingly like it feels like they're like the free radical in the room, where they bounce from wall to wall. I mean, there's some friends I have where even just sitting next to them, I find like my nervous system like starts to get more elevated, just because they have this kind of quick, darty energy. And, no matter, sure, everyone has their tired days or their stressful moments or joy-filled days, but this kind of this base temperament, this base energetic temperament, part of how how traditionally in Taoist medicine you talk about that is as part of being part of this prenatal essence, that this energy is part of your baseline, and you always have this certain vibrancy, this certain energy. And then when you eat, you can get some energy from that. And when you see beautiful things, you can get energies from that. And the other really just most dramatic, other than eating, but maybe even more so, is the energy that we get from breathing and how we breathe. It is our life force, our prana. And while we come into this world with this prenatal energy, with this, this reserve of energy, our life force, our prana, can be wildly, that made it confusing. When we breathe, we affect our energy very quickly and very dramatically. So it's not the baseline, it's the way it can change hugely from, if you can't breathe, from life to death, right? That's the biggest, quickest change. But more traditionally in the daily rhythm of things, our energy changes a lot based on our breath. So take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh it out while you're still in this pose. And then start to slide your hips back to your heels one more time, or you can slide forward too. You might have a preference. Of course, we all have a preference. Either way, the next wonderful position that we're going to meet up together in is lateral dragonfly, or we're going to do some dragonflies in general, but we're going to start with the lateral. So stretch your legs out as wide as the yoga mat. And the lateral dragonflies isn't just like the sideways flying dragonflies. It's to stretch our side body. So take your left arm and slide it down your left leg. You can also put like a couch pillow, like a nice long one there if you want to elevate it. And then lift your right arm up. Let it really stretch up, and then turn your palm to the floor and drape your hand over your arm, over your ear. Maybe your hand comes all the way to your foot. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's just lovingly reaching for your foot. But see what you can do to soften while keeping your body in that pose. So even though we talk about in Taoism, like the lungs are ruled by the mineral element, while the kidneys are ruled by the water element. When we actually look at the kidneys, the role of fire is so significant to the kidneys, even though it doesn't rule the kidneys, that we can't talk about the kidneys without really talking about warmth, fire. So really, kidneys is about the dynamic between water and fire. We can picture they work to regulate what gets warm enough to become vapors and lift up into your body, and what doesn't get warm enough, which cools down, it leaves your body, urinary bladder. Yeah. And in the lungs, we have the mineral element, and it has both these sides of it too, where mineral, it's we think of like being solid and metal, and we don't think of, or I don't think of the gases as much. So it takes a little work to be like, oh yeah, these minerals are even in the air we breathe. Now inhale, roll up, and keeping your legs as they are. Yes, we're going to do the other side. It's going to be heavenly. Slide your right arm down your beautiful right leg. Stretch your left arm up and then relax it, draping it down. Maybe it lands and holds your toes. Maybe it doesn't. But find a place where you can invite some softness in. But in mineral, we also find this dynamicism of like there's the trace minerals in the air we breathe, right? Like there's minerals everywhere. But then we also have this this part that goes upward, air, and the part that goes down, drops down, precipitates out of the gas. So they also have this up and down nature. And while we often make reference to the kidneys and the urinary bladder, like when we get scared, like we it's connected to like People in literature, you can like, I was so scared I peed myself. But the other thing we know that we do when we're scared is we hold our breath, like or when you're trying to listen for something, we hold our breath. So we can understand that these systems, they work together. They're not just working in isolation from one another. Our body doesn't, or maybe it does, but I don't say, oh, that was energy I got from eating food, and oh, that was energy I got from the air, and oh, that's just part of my prenatal energy reserve. We don't make the distinction as we use energy, like, oh yeah, that was definitely sunlight from my mitochondria. I got that one. We don't have this system, like we don't have to have it categorized and understand it in our, day-to-day moment. It's this experience of energy that is available to us. And in the lung system and the large intestines, one of the pathways that's open when we have good lung qi, or when we want to improve our lungs, we can follow it on purpose, is to find reverence for the world around us and even ourselves. Now inhale, roll up, and I know you probably aren't quite so excited to keep your legs like that, but you're going to keep your legs like that, and you can do a little wiggle. And then take your little spiders for a walk and come right down the center, either lying down, dropping at your elbow, like just dropping your elbows and softening your head. Or if that doesn't even quite happen, you can come forward. You can even, if it helps you, keep your hands behind you as you just start to roll your pelvis forward. In the kidneys, the dynamic of when our kidneys are doing well, that it helps support our wisdom. When the kidneys are suffering, that we tend to have an increased experience of fear. When our lungs are suffering, we really feel despair. And like, just hear it for a moment. What is one of like the most debilitating combinations? Despair and fear. Yeah. So very much the kidneys and the lungs, like they have parts of each other that, it's much easier to get scared if you're in despair. It's much easier to be fearful if you're grieving already. So when we think about where do we feed our soul to allow healing balance to return to these systems, it's this reverence. And I think in a way that can be a more useful tool than wisdom, because wisdom is like, you can't just be, oh, I want to be wise. Wisdom is a result of trust, of faith. And isn't it so much easier to allow that experience in when you are in awe and wonder and in reverence of the beauty of the world, or the beauty and sophistication of the human body, or the mystery of the whole dance of the spheres, whatever it is. Like when we have this sense of beauty, then it's much more natural, or feels much more integrated. to find this faith, this trust. And then start to roll up. We're going to have a little yang moment. So bring your hands about mid-thigh. See if you can do a booty pop, whoop, whoop. Or maybe you can lift up both of your legs at the same time and your butt. Yep. Maybe give yourself a little Charlie horse. But you're going to keep your left leg wide and you're going to bend your right heel in. And you're going to lift your elbows high and pretend it's the late 90s and you're at a xoxo. Okay, whatever show you want. Twist your belly button over your left leg and then bow down over your left leg. So it should be a little bit more gentle folding one of your legs in. Just notice. Still a hamstring stretch, still a twist. Let your head be heavy. It's a little bit like how, we talk about our yoga series, these different yin series that we practice together, that it's like focused on one organ pair. But we know that our body, again, also doesn't have this neatly organized system where we can improve our one section without improving the rest of it. That's how allopathic medicine might work, but that isn't how our nature works, how our natural state of things work. So yes, you might find that you go to a doctor and get something prescribed from allopathic medicine that is really good for this one thing, and it gives you this whole other set of things that they can sell you new medicine for. And of course, sometimes when in herbology too, especially when they're treating it like a substitution for allopathic medicine, you can kind of get lopsided and the treatment can end up causing other imbalances. But in our body, when we improve, for instance, our lung capacity or our aerobic nature, it helps our heart, it helps our kidneys, it helps our skin, our sweat, our circulation, our metabolism. Like all of these things are affected because we are whole. We are holy beings. These systems can't be actually pulled out from each other than to theorize and understand and study. But when they're in the body, they're much more sensitive to each other. I mean, just like the elements, we don't know a world that's just mineral. We don't know a world that's just water. With your next inhale, roll up. And I'm just stuck on it. Take your right hand behind your right hip and just stretch your left side. I can't seem to do that Janusharasana without stretching out like this. Because it just feels so lovely. And then bring your hips back down and switch your legs. Do a little dance, maybe have a little bit more of a, what do you call it? A woo-woo. So I want to be a Hawaiian dancer. Twist your belly button over your right leg and then bow down, letting your head hang. Take a full inhale with your exhale, side out. It's really this dynamic thinking that we want to encourage in every place possible, because I don't know about you, but I'm experiencing so often this sensation of like, we suffer for other people. Like we hear these horrible things that are happening in the world, and it hurts us. Like it doesn't make sense. Like, or even you might even notice that you'll have sensitivities to like the earth, like whether there's an oil spill or a natural disaster, like, or you drive past a field that is plowed and naked and unprotected by vegetation. But definitely if you see like a child hurt or you see another human being hurt, like we feel it. Like, I mean, especially if we hear about somebody cutting something, hurting something, breaking, like we feel it in our body. Like I don't even want to hear some of the stories because you just feel too, there's such an echo, there's such a feeling of hurting with people that it's, here I am in Sweden for now, things are okay, we don't have obvious attacks coming, every minute from the sky, but you still see some people really in pain from what's going on in the world. So we want to start to feel and let it be integrated into our worldview that when human beings are being harmed, we're being harmed. When the earth is being harmed, we're being harmed. Like that's not outside of us. And in the same time, yes, there is a difference. Like we can be grateful for our situation and our privilege in this moment. But this idea that we can be for one side or another side is archaic. It doesn't make sense anymore. There's only one side, and that is humanity. Or there's only, there's only like, yeah, for me, that it feels like that there's so like war is so outdated. It doesn't work with the way the human soul is constructed anymore. But neither is, using poisons in the earth, trying to grow one thing at the expense of all these other living things. It's just oversimplified thinking. There's nothing outside of the experiment, that we can't have a controlled environment. And then start to roll up. Take your left hand behind your left hip and stretch out your whole right side of your body. And bring your hips back down. And we are going to spin and roll onto our backs and actually roll into snail pose. So this is going to be a yang moment. Before then we finish with a yin twist. So take your hands to your lower back and take your feet up over your head, and maybe you need to bend your knees towards your forehead, or you can bring your toes to the ground. Take your hands and slide them closer to your shoulders, squeeze your elbows in. And being active in the pose, we're not going to be here for a couple minutes, just a couple moments. You can, with your toes touching the ground, you can engage your thighs and actually start to lift your thighs towards your hamstrings. You can extend your arms beyond your spine and hold hands, or you can keep your hands supporting your lower back. If you do get to grip your hands beyond your spine, notice that you can push your hands down towards the ground and it actually propels your hips a little bit more and it helps you activate your thighs, lifts your thighs. Weird sensation. Take another full inhale, and then with your exhale, start to unfurl, roll out of the pose, just coming up onto your elbows, just to do a counter stretch. Let your chest pop up, letting your head hang back for a moment. And then softly slide your elbows out to the side and hug your right knee up to your chest. Stretch your left leg long, and then slide your hips to your right and bring your right knee across your body to the left. Maybe your toes hook behind your knee, or maybe you stretch your leg out as variations. Take a full inhale, and with your exhale, just sigh out. We have to keep our faith up. And still, even with the atrocities that are happening, still notice how beautiful the autumn is. Still notice the magic, the grace, wherever you find it. Allowing our will, dare I say free will, to help us bring our attention to having at least some time in our day where we get to sit in reverence. Whether it's prayer or being in reverence for a mighty, beautiful wood. Just like we can feel, and empathize with other people's pain, there is the other side of it, where when we build up our capacity for wonder, when we practice leaning into our faith instead of our fear, that somehow that soul action in us helps that force be available to make that same inner act in themselves. Hug your knee back to center and then switch legs, pulling in your left knee, stretching your right leg, shift your hips to the left, and then drop your left knee across your body to the right. The other memory that helps me, I use that term loosely, but helps me stay present, stay active, even in small ways, is this, when we take our practice of reminding ourselves we're in the right place at the right time with the right people, that also means that we're here at the right time in the world. And this is the time that we said we wanted to be active in, that we wanted to use our precious attention and will in such a way to bring more light into the world. You know, a candle is not very bright when it's a bright, sunny, beautiful day out, but when it's stormy and dark, one candle can light up a room, can show the way, and is desperately needed. So hug your knees in, come back to center, give yourself a little squeeze, maybe even lift up your face and kiss your knees. Thank you for doing all the work they do. And then stretch out into Shavasana. Feel free to cover your eyes or cover your body with a blanket or your huge sweater. And then feel the ground support you. Open your palms, close your eyes, let your attention stay in the room. With your next inhale, start to invite your breath back to the edges of your body. Wiggle your fingers and your toes. Deepen your breath. Stretch your arms up over your head. Wiggle your hands away from your feet. And then curl into a ball. And if it's comfortable for you, roll onto your side. Feel the vibrancy, the vitality, your inner sparkle. And then help yourself up into a comfortable seated position. Allow your hands to meet at heart center. Close your eyes, let your shoulders drop. Again, feel your breath. We're going to close with one ohm. Take a full inhale through your nose. Take your prayer hands to your third eye. Invite the divine light. And as we bow down together, we say, Namaste. And so much love. Boom, boom, boom. Make some noise. Yeah. Thank you so much.